another Utah State sport that's starting up this week. Utah State volleyball, the reigning champions of the Mountain West. And we have head coach Rob Nielson on with us on The Fan. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Glad to be with you guys.
So before we get into this season, let's just kind of maybe get a review of last season. Third straight Mountain West titles. It's not just reigning champion, it's reigning like back-to-back-to-back champion. At-large bid in the NCAA tournament, second straight appearance in the NCAA tournament. I guess just tell us about that last season and what it meant to the program, not just winning another title, but kind of establishing some dominance in the Mountain West.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that phrase, back-to-back-to-back champions. I don't think that will ever get old, so we love hearing that, and just so proud of the accomplishments of that group, just their toughness, their resilience, how hard they worked across the course of the year. This was our first ever at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. And so, normally teams, as they'd gotten in the past, had won the conference tournament and received the automatic bid. But it just speaks to the quality of the season throughout. We finished number 17th in the RPI, which was our highest rated season ever in national ranking, and just again incredibly proud of the work that team put in, their resilience, their toughness. It's so hard to grind and to be that consistent over the course of the season, and really just set and lived up to an incredible standard. And so just amazingly proud of those ladies and what they represent and what they meant to Utah State athletics as a whole, but especially to our volleyball program.
Well, certainly with that momentum that's been built over the last several seasons here, not surprising to see you guys second in the preseason poll, but maybe surprising that you weren't picked first after all of your accomplishments recently. But there were a few that gave you some first-place votes, but there's some stiff competition in this conference, some good volleyball being played throughout. Just speak to the level of competition in this conference for volleyball.
Yeah, that's always been a hallmark of the Mountain West Conference. There's a ton of parity. They choose the top 6 teams to go to the conference tournament, based on the regular season standings. The top 6 play for a conference tournament title, 6 of 11. And in the last week of season, we had kind of run away with it and claimed the top spot. But during the last week of season, teams 2 through 10 still had an opportunity to get in as the 3 seed, right? 2 or 3 seed. And so just speaks to the amount of parity, how tough it is, how great the coaches are across the conference, how good the athletes are across the conference. And you mentioned, for us, being picked to finish second was actually a surprise for us. We graduated a lot of that team last year, 7 seniors. And so we have a completely new team this year. And we like to think that we're, that we're just reloading and getting after it. We don't look at this as a rebuild season. We look at it as, we've brought in an incredibly talented group of athletes. And so we're excited to reload and see where we can get to by the end of the season. But we're going to have a lot of learning in front of us, and we're excited to do it and working hard to get it done as a group.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that reloading because last year was kind of the culmination of a lot of fantastic careers. Tatum, Stahl, Kennedy, Boyd, Shelby, I can't pronounce her last name, so I'm not going to try. Capion. There we go. Obviously some fantastic all-Mountain West players. Some of them can be considered like all-time Aggies in the sport. You mentioned a lot of them have graduated. You have some players returning who are top players, but Aidna and you also brought in a transfer. Kind of tell us about some of these new players that are, they're going to be the ones responsible for reloading and living up to the expectations where every year everyone expects Utah State to be at or near the top of the standings.
Yeah, and we love those expectations. Obviously honored by the coaches. I think it's more than anything a recognition of the talented players that we've brought in, being picked to finish second with so many newcomers. You mentioned some returners. We have Adna Mehmetovic, an all-conference opposite for us. Kelsey Watson was a middle that started for us all year last year and may have been our best player at the end of the season. She hit 1,000 in our last match at Nevada, our final regular season match. and then was our best player, hit 1,000, 8 for 8 in swings in our NCAA tournament match, and was absolutely blocking everything. She was, by far our best player in that NCAA match against a tough Minnesota team. And then you mentioned we brought in an all-conference middle blocker, Tierney Barlow from the University of Wyoming. She absolutely tortured us in both of just torched us in both matches that we played against them, both at home and when we were on the road in Wyoming. So we're so happy that she's on our side. She's just a phenomenal athlete and a wonderful teammate in person. So we have this core group of players that have some experience. And then we have 11 freshmen that are brand new to college volleyball. We brought in 4 foreigners, one from Poland, one from Serbia, and 2 from Croatia. So they have a little bit of high-level experience, and they're just absolutely high-level players and amazing athletes, wonderful people. We're so excited for what they get to add to our program. And then brought in 6 other freshmen, quite a few from Utah. So we love that we're changing the narrative in the state of what it means to be an Aggie and what our program represents. And then a few from, other places, Idaho and the Midwest. And so we're really excited about this group and what we can accomplish this year.
So what's kind of been the difference with this offseason? Because in previous off seasons, defending a Mountain West title, a conference or regular season title, you maybe had more returners. Is there anything new you're learning? Or, you apparently have the secret to always being at the top of the conference. I guess maybe what's kind of difference this offseason trying to defend that title with more newcomers as opposed to more returners?
Yeah, there's everything new that we're learning, right? And so just how are you a team? How do you deal with adversity? How do you deal with mistakes? How can you play at a consistently high level? Those are lessons that our last few years' teams had to come through, and they had to learn on their own. It's not totally new. We've gone through it. That second season, I think we had 6 or 7 newcomers come into our program, right before we were able to, put together a great conference season and win our first championship in 2021. So I think we learned a lot of lessons from that. Maybe the biggest lesson was, we're not going to saddle this group with expectations or, hey, what has been or how good the program has been or you have something that you have to live up to. We just want to focus on getting better every day. And if we can get 18 people to get laser focused on making small improvements every day, you're going to see this team get better and better and better and better throughout the season until I think we have an opportunity to be a really special team, but we got a long way to go. And we're excited for that process. And it's really reinvigorating actually as a coach, right? You're getting to teach so much more of the game. Because, you have a veteran group like we had the last couple of years. It's more about just small tweaks here and there. But, man, the learning curve is steep, and we're learning a ton every day, both individually and collectively as a group. And so we love this process. We can't cheat the process, and we're excited to see where we can get to by the season's end.
Again, we're talking to Rob Nielson. He's the head coach of the Utah State women's volleyball program. And, Coach, I wanted to ask you about putting your schedule together when you've got a program that's becoming recognized nationally for being a solid program over the last several years. But also you've got a young team, relatively inexperienced team. So how do you balance still trying to test your team but also provide opportunities for them to gain confidence in what you're trying to ask of them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've scheduled almost every preseason since I've been here with really tough teams where we've looked at our non-conference schedule and thought, man, we could realistically lose every game. And we were lucky. I think we finished, 7-4 or 8-3 the last couple of years, and came through really tough non-conference schedules, with great records. I don't know what it's going to be like for this team. We scheduled a lot of tough opponents. And so, we're going to be tested and we're going to have to learn a lot of those lessons. I think we're going to have some great moments. We might have some struggles, but those ups and downs are what forge the character of the group that we're after to be great, especially during our conference season. So we haven't taken it light. We go to the University of Utah. We go play at BYU. We're playing number 7 Purdue at home. week 2 with 2 All-American outside hitters, right? And that's as good of an opponent as we're going to face, and we love the fact that we get to bring them into the Estes. So we're going to put our players in tough moments, and, they're going to succeed in a lot of them, and they're going to fail in a lot of them. And we're going to forge a character of this group coming through, highs and lows that's really going to establish a championship culture and a championship toughness and a championship edge that we're going to need to be great in our conference season.
So when you look at a team that goes through a really tough schedule, what are the kind of things that separate teams that may succeed early on in a tough schedule or maybe struggle, or maybe even struggle early and succeed later? What are kind of the differences between some of those teams that maybe take different paths through a tough non-conference schedule?
Yeah, I think maybe the biggest thing is how quickly you respond and recover from failure. And so one of the things that I harp on all the time, the difference between winning and losing. We had this unbelievably great season last year, finished 17-1 in conference. We won 54% of points in conference. So that means we lost almost half of the points that we played. The team that finished just outside of the playoffs, so in the number 7 spot in our conference, we were 17-1, finished first. The team that finished 7th in our conference, they won 51% of points. And the difference in points in a match was only 7 points in an entire 4-set match, right? There's almost no difference. 2 points a set was the difference between an incredibly historic season, 17-1, and not making the playoffs. So when you talk to a young team, they want to be sad about this ball that they passed off the net, or they want to be sad that they didn't block a ball, or they're frustrated that they didn't kill a ball. And we're just trying to get them to compete. The difference between a great season and, not making the playoffs is 2 points a set. How quickly can you respond to failure? How quickly can you respond to a mistake to get back to competing at the highest level? Again, we lost almost half of the points that we played and had a great season. Luckily, we won, enough more that we, had this great opportunity and had a great year. But you're going to lose. Even if you're a great team, you're going to lose a lot of points. How do you respond to those failures and those struggles to still come back and compete at your highest and best possible capacity? And so that is the lesson that you have to learn with a young team, and that is what great teams do. They're just able to weather the ups and downs with a mental toughness that you would expect from a champion.
Coach, you'd mentioned that on this roster, you've got a fair number of athletes from the state of Utah. How have you observed, now that you've been here for several years, how has volleyball, has it changed? Has it evolved? Has it adapted at the high school level and the club level to get them ready in this state to play at a high level like at your squad at Utah State?
No, I would say that volleyball in Utah has been really, really good for the last 10 years. There's been a high level of talent, and it's only getting better the last 4 or 5 years. For us, when we took over the program, the team had finished 2-28. We were ranked 300th in the RPI. This wasn't a program that was making noise around the country or with recruits in state. And so, credit to our players that have come through the last 4 years, credit to the coaches that have, worked with us and been part of kind of this turnaround of revamping the story that we get to tell recruits. And the stories that we get to tell recruits is, look, you get an opportunity to come be part of a championship experience. And that's rare throughout college volleyball, right? It's like a lot of sports, football, basketball. You have some of the blue bloods that are competing for national championships. But there's also, kind of this rare air of being able to compete for conference championships year in and year out. I think we've shown that we've been able to build that. We're certainly working to build towards national relevance and making runs in the NCAA tournaments. But, the teams the last 3 years that have won conference championships, in 20 years, they're going to get together. They're going to point to banners on the wall. They're going to have rings on their fingers. And they're going to tell stories about how they persevered through tough moments in ways that define the rest of their life and how they looked at, the tough moments as, in the workforce or in families or in relationships. And that's an incredibly valuable experience that we feel like we get to offer recruits, throughout the state, throughout the country, throughout the world. And so we love telling that story. And we love that we've picked up some momentum in really signing some unbelievably great recruits out of the state of Utah.
So kind of a bit of a tangent off that similar point. Boys volleyball here in the state hasn't been a sanctioned sport for a while, just had its first season under the UHSAA. You obviously have a background in men's volleyball. Kind of what's it like seeing the sport of boys volleyball taking off here in the state?
I love it, and it's going to absolutely explode. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch the Olympics and men's volleyball. It is an unbelievably fast-paced, high-level, incredible athletes. The guys on the Olympic team are touching above 12 feet, playing on this 8-foot net. And so they're just incredibly powerful athletes, but they're also diving on the floor every other play. And I just can't think of a sport where you play as high as 12 feet and you also kind of grind and grovel and get on the ground and dive, and you're moving around. The spectrum of athleticism that you get to view in the sport of volleyball, the power, just the team camaraderie, what a great team sport. This is absolutely going to take off in the state of Utah. Boys are going to love playing this sport, just as they have around the country. And so we're excited to see, more resources come towards volleyball. I think just like women's volleyball is starting to really take off and get a lot more notice around the country. This is just a wonderful sport for so many different reasons. And we love seeing boys play it, and it's going to keep being played at a higher and higher level. So we're excited for that for sure.
Coach, it's been a weird summer for Utah State athletics. And I know Amy Crosby as a former player, but also her role over volleyball and a lot of other sports. What was your relationship like working with her?
Amy, I would say, is the best women's administrator I've ever worked with in my 25 years of coaching. I've heard that from, a lot of other coaches that she got to work with. And, I think back to her response, in such a tough circumstance, obviously, losing your job under, still, I think, a lot of unknowns, as we kind of look out and try and figure out what was going on. But she wrote an op-ed that just talked about, she's going to choose gratitude for her time being here. She's going to choose gratitude for the athletes that she got to work with and the lives that she got to impact and that got to impact hers. And I just can't speak highly enough of her character kind of in the face of that. And, what an amazing example that is to our young women that are going to go through adverse times, and the ability to just rise above it. And, hey, I'm going to, I don't like this circumstance that's happened to me, but I'm going to make the best of it. It's the kind of a reference to the great Wooden quote of things turn out best for people who make the best of the way things turn out. And she's absolutely been an example of that. And I'm so proud of her, and we're rooting for her and wishing her the best.
So, Coach, one thing I want to touch on with the team again, with a lot of the newcomers, do you expect anything to change as far as the style or the kind of the identity of the team, like what people expect to see, with new players? I can't speak to style and strategy of volleyball. I'm not nearly enough an expert for that. Maybe explain if there will be any differences fans can expect.
Yeah, the thing that I talk about as I talk about this team or last year's team, right? We had I kind of referenced we had this great season last year. Sort of a benchmark for athleticism in women's volleyball is, can you touch 10 feet? Once you can touch 10 feet, that's like the goal, touching the rim. It's kind of this nice round number, rim in basketball, but it's, sort of a metric that a lot of coaches use. We had this historic season last year. We didn't have one starter that touched 10 feet for us. And so, right, we were great at volleyball and tough and, knew how to play the game, knew how to control the ball, and knew how to challenge teams that were, quite frankly, much more physical than we were. This group of freshmen that we're bringing in, I think, 8 out of 13 of our newcomers touched 10-3 or above. And so we have just a physicality in our gym that we've never had before. And certainly, and I think this ball control component is going to be there as well. We have some learning to do in that aspect of how to play together as a group. But this is just a much more physical team than we've ever had in the past. And so I'm excited to see, how that comes together and coalesces and allows us to play, right? You have this component of this high net, big blockers on the other side, preventing you from hitting shots with certain angles. We just have this capacity to play with more range over the net, play with a little bit more power. And, we get to learn how to play just as good, hopefully, if not better, volleyball than the groups that are preceding this one. So we're excited for that component maybe most of all.
We're definitely excited to watch it this season. Again, head coach Rob Nielson, thank you so much for coming on. Season begins this weekend, 3 games Friday, Saturday, Sunday against Green Bay, Utah, UTEP. Home opener against Cal on September 6th. Certainly an exciting time for you, Rob.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys, Jason and Eric, for showcasing our sport and giving us some time to chat about our program. And we're excited to see the Aggie faithful out to support this amazing group of women.
In Club Estes.
Yeah, in Club Estes.
It's a great party. The atmosphere is awesome.
Club Estes. Come rock with us. Yeah,
Yes.
we love it.